Hi KIB teachers, welcome to the next webinar in the Maximize Being the Best Version of Yourself webinar series. Today we are looking at facilitating collaboration and how you can promote pro-social external relations. A reminder of the overview of the webinar series, and today we are looking at the second webinar in the module focusing on external relationships that you have with your fellow teachers as peers and also with parents of students. I will ask that you please scan the QR code on your phones and answer a few questions for us to gauge how your understanding has hopefully developed throughout the course of this webinar series. I'll just give you a moment to please do so. Thank you for doing that, and you may like to complete some of the questions towards the end of this webinar as well. Starting with the introduction, what are we hopefully learning about today? My aim is to provide you with the skills to engage and leverage fellow colleagues and parents in managing students. An outline of what today looks like. We'll start with some context as to why we're looking into collaboration and the importance of it. What is collaboration and pro-social behaviour and how to build collaborative environments. Then we'll move on to looking at teacher-teacher collaboration and how can you collaborate with your peers. And finally, looking at teacher-parent collaboration and how can you collaborate with parents of students. Starting with the context. So why are we really looking at collaboration and pro-social behaviour today, and why is that important for you as a teacher? Well, studies have found that teachers involved in collaborative learning utilise more innovative pedagogies, display higher job satisfaction, self-efficacy and high student outcomes. So there's clearly benefits for not only yourself and your role as a teacher, but also for students. Schools which are more collaborative also lead to improved academic outcomes for their students and overall between educational outcomes. Starting with a definition of collaboration and pro-social behaviour. Collaboration really is the union between multiple people that produce an outcome greater than what an individual would produce alone. Pro-social behaviour specifically is voluntary behaviour intended to benefit another. So in this case, it may be students, parents, teachers. This involves sharing, comforting and helping. Collaborative cultures are defined by two key overarching beliefs, one being transparency, and secondly, shared decision making. And we'll look at how this can be achieved in a school environment. So how can you build collaborative environments at KIB? Really, it's about assuming responsibility for every student's success. It's also about working together towards common goals. It is, of course, that transparency and shared decision making that we just looked at. And how can we actually do that? Looking at one model is the egg crate model. And this is when every teacher and classroom is segregated and operates differently to other classrooms. So thinking about eggs in a tray, they're typically quite independent and isolated. So there's not that opportunity necessarily for shared resources and collaboration. A more effective way to manage classrooms and overall the interaction between the school as a whole is the egg basket model. And this is where teachers share their expertise and other teachers benefit from this and able to learn from each other. So there's more cross collaboration between classrooms, not just within. So obviously the egg basket model is better than the egg crate model because we have teachers that work together rather than in isolation. So some strategies for how this can be achieved. Really, it's about transparency, shared decision making, clear goals and objectives, open communication, having an inclusive environment, genuine teamwork and helping one another and fellow teachers, rapport and respect, empathy and good listening. So giving you a moment, I would like you to take out the worksheet that goes along with today's webinar and please write down one way you can increase collaboration and pro-social behaviour with fellow teachers and or parents? So looking at teacher-teacher collaboration in particular, and how can you work with fellow teachers at KRB to ultimately benefit the students? Collaborative teaching involves sharing responsibility. So it's not one person's or one teacher's responsibility for the success of students. That student success depends on multiple teachers at KRB. So it's really about supporting each other's efforts, learning about what other of your peers and teachers at KRB are doing to support that student and how can you actually support each other in achieving their goals. That can involve sharing ideas, but also evaluating new ideas and being open to developing improved models which will help different students. Of course, avoiding a top-down culture is key. So this is typically denoted by a dependence on principal or leadership who dictate how things are done, discourage challenges to the status quo, limited development, and ideas are limited to past ideas. So we've always done it this way. I don't think this is necessarily a problem at all at King Coppell. It's much more of a flat structure, which is great in terms of facilitating and allowing that structure to set up a genuinely collaborative culture. I wanted to show you one case study which was involved particularly at being very good at the transparency and shared decision making. So this was an example where there was a school where there was a principal who really worked with the fellow teachers to develop a new, in this case, it was a literacy program, which helped to improve the results on NAPLAN results for the students of the school. It was grassroots, so it really came up from the teachers. All teachers had that shared responsibility to contribute to the new program that was being rolled out across all teachers. That principal ended up leaving that particular school and took the same learnings to another school, and assuming that because of the great success of it, assuming that same model worked in future, they thought that in the past that they thought that would work in the future. Of course, then they were at a new school with different teachers who weren't involved in that shared decision making. There wasn't transparency as to why they were including that program. So of course it was met with quite a lot of confusion as to why this program was now being this school. Of course, that had problems for leadership, which resulted in the conclusion that transference of the program, even though it worked somewhere else, it didn't work in this new school because there was not that ultimate transparency and shared decision making. So just a reminder as to thinking really specifically about KRB, what's going to work with KRB as a whole, and how can you ultimately collaborate in the best possible way for the KRB students, and having those grassroots conversations to help develop programs which are going to be advantageous specifically to that school in a transparent way that's based on shared decision making. So how can you collaborate with your peers at KRB? So, of course, improving transparency and shared decisions. So developing guidelines for how to disseminate information. If there's a bit more process around this, and this is something to perhaps to think about at KRB, is to how can you have that information flow in a way that suits everyone overall. Formatting information in a more universal way. Every teacher obviously has more of their specialised way or specialty that they focus on, even whether it's between subjects or different ways of teaching or disseminating information, but trying to have it in a universal way can help to break down some of those barriers. Quite obvious, and I'm sure you already do this, but anyway, but writing a succinct and clear way, elevating those learnings that you have that you want to share, working against isolation. So really making sure we're embracing that egg basket model, taking opportunities to observe and be observed so that you can learn from fellow teachers. How do they genuinely teach? What can you pick up from other people? Vice versa. What can other teachers learn from you? And also explaining and justifying your thought process to have that genuine shared decisions. Professional learning communities are a group of teachers that can come together, and it's basically the collaboration, sharing, and ongoing integration of teaching practices in line with your professional standards. But they're also learning orientated and aim to support the growth of not only yourselves as teachers, but also that of students. So the benefits of PLCs, or professional learning communities: there's a positive impact on both teaching practice and the student achievement, can develop your own confidence and self-efficacy, support school and student improvement, enhance your own professional development as teachers, builds effective leadership and management, improves quality of education, provides for a more consistent learning experience, of course, between the subjects and teaching classrooms, and ultimately does result in increased student achievement. You may be familiar with Professor John Hattie, and he said in 2015, the staff room needs to be a professional community of scholars working together to maximise each other's success. So how do you actually engage in a PLC? This could be collaborating with KRB and or external teachers. So not only within KRB itself, but also between. So looking to whether you've got even peers outside in a professional context or even a personal. Do you have friends that are teachers at other schools? How can you learn from them? Scheduling in actually regular meetings, for instance, every 4 weeks or every month, may even be every term, for instance. Collect and track data and evidence so you can manage what you measure. So it's important to start having that track based on what you're ultimately trying to achieve. Seeking constructive two-way feedback, we've looked at that previously as the most advantageous way to learn is to provide feedback and receive it. Sharing learning delivery strategies, scheduling time for actual reflective dialogue, so having moments where you can think, how do I actually put these learnings into practice? Adopting shared values and a sense of purpose, obviously mutual trust and respect, and taking ultimately collective responsibility for students. So bearing that in mind, I would like you to again bring out your worksheet, please, and write down one way that you can engage more in teacher-teacher collaboration. And that may be by drawing on some of the learnings from PLCs or otherwise. And finally, teacher-parent collaboration. So this is ultimately collaborating with parents of students in the best way possible to support not only yourself and having those benefits that you can come from collaborating with parents, but also to helping the parent engage with the student and ultimately result in better outcomes for the students. So teacher-parent collaboration really is when teachers and parents work together in the educational process and experience of their students and children. The benefits of teacher-parent collaboration is that it's essential for teachers and parents to consult and undertake joint efforts and share information in providing efficient and meaningful education for students. So naturally, it's that more holistic approach, which we know has benefits for students, not only academically, but also personally. Why should you do it really? The benefit is, of course, that it allows to adjust more effectively to your responsibilities and delineate what is the teacher's role and the parent's role, and also your actions to continuously improve students' development. It also helps parents to feel more self-confident and more comfortable with the school. Also would result in a more increased confidence towards your abilities as teachers, and more likely to become involved they are in managing their child's academic performance at home in collaboration with the teacher. So I think besides that potentially cushy benefit or perceived benefit that it's, I think, nice to do, it's actually going to result in outcomes that are beneficial for you to help offload some of that workload that you have in managing and working with your students, and help teachers to bring the parents into the process to help you. So it really is a reciprocal relationship. It's those, quick phone calls that might be to nip something in the bud, to raise something, concern, to have a meeting, a note, anything to help parents be more comfortable, but also to help you to outsource some of those challenges that you may not be able to do necessarily just in your role as a teacher. How can you really bring the parent in a way that's going to help you and also the student to thrive? So how can you collaborate with parents? Parents are more likely to participate in parent-teacher collaboration if they're receiving more information from you about different classroom activities, the progress of the child, what's required from them, and how to work with their child at home. So use them as a way to help not only your own workload, but also the benefit of students. So this is proactively encouraging parents to speak up and communicate concerns so that you're aware of any other potentially extenuating circumstances which may be impacting the student at school. Maintaining regular contact, and we've looked at how we can do this previously with things like Aspire, Class Dojo, Calendly, but you can also email, phone, video calls, face-to-face, and using more formal channels such as, for instance, parent-teacher nights. We did look at this in a previous webinar, but the strategy is really of relating, moving towards them, outsourcing, and also discussing can help. So a reminder that relating is learning about them, being enthusiastic to engage them in the process and genuinely learn about them and also their children, acknowledging their concerns, small talk, listen actively, and include that humour and warmth. Outsourcing, which can help be achieved by outsourcing to students and helping to involve them more in it can help them to be more involved with their parents, and also outsourcing to parents to help them to self-manage and self-organise and answer questions that can come up independently to reduce the pressure and load onto you. And discussing moving away. So the monitoring of classrooms, recording those observed feedback, writing down feedback, which is more effective than just verbal, asking parents also in turn for feedback, both on their child themselves, but also for you, and reflecting upon that feedback and adjusting accordingly. So ultimately, strategies for teacher-parent collaboration. Proactively communicate. Definitely proactive and a preventative approach to dealing with concerns is far more advantageous than reacting when the fire happens. Relating to them, recognising parental concerns, learning about them, small talk, outsourcing those comms to the students and or parents, automating comms we looked at, for instance, those tools, Aspire, Class Dojo, Calendly, monitoring classrooms, and then providing and seeking feedback. I will give you a moment to please bring out your worksheet and write down one way you can engage more in teacher-parent collaboration, please. And to summarise, what did you hopefully learn about today? Well, collaboration is a union between multiple people that produces a greater outcome than what an individual would produce alone. Pro-social behaviour is voluntary behaviour intended to benefit another. Collaborative cultures are grounded in transparency and shared decision-making. Teacher-teacher collaboration is where teachers support one another, share responsibility and ideas, and evaluate new ideas together. Teacher-teacher collaboration can be achieved by developing guidelines for the universal communication of information, working against isolation and thinking about that egg basket model, and engaging in professional learning communities. Teacher-parent collaboration involves working together with parents in the educational process and sharing of information and responsibilities. And teacher-parent collaboration can be achieved by proactively communicating, relating to parents, outsourcing, automating your communications with them, and engaging in productive discussions and two-way feedback. Some resources for you. Always have the emergency contacts here available to you. You also have Maximize, which is available for free access using KRB 2024. And here are my contact details if you do have any other further questions, comments, or thoughts, and look forward to seeing you again next week. Thank you.